both sides of the aisle. We're joined by Republican strategist Rina Shah, who has worked as a senior aide to several Republican members of Congress, and Democratic strategist Michael Hardaway, who has worked for several U.S. senators, including Barack Obama. Welcome to the show, and good morning to you both. So the president and Speaker Kevin McCarthy have been at odds over many issues, but last night he started by extending an olive branch. Let's listen really quick.
I start tonight by congratulating the 118th Congress and the new Speaker of the House, Kevin McCarthy.
Rina, how successful was the president on setting the tone of the evening there, and how successful do you think he'll be in moving that spirit forward? I mean, introducing someone as their position shouldn't be looked at as something as extending an olive branch. It's pretty simple, but do you think that this was kind of bigger than we think it was?
Absolutely. Starting out on a positive note like that bodes well for the future of that speech. And what we saw was a very strong speech. He went just a few minutes longer than he did his last State of the Union address. But what I know in coming out of the gate and congratulating Speaker McCarthy, as well as congratulating McConnell on their successes in their respective chambers, that was a very good move. And it really revealed the politician that Joe Biden has long been, somebody that was a member of that very chamber he was speaking in last night. So I think what we saw yesterday was somebody who really, from a genuine place, sought to unify, understood that he was coming in with some really, really big barriers in front of him, and he tore them all down pretty much last night. There were some sore spots for Republicans, but overall, I would grade this speech a B+.
So you mentioned the sore spot. So Michael, at times the president did take on the group of outspoken Republicans who were very loud at moments during the speech, but instead of ignoring it or stumbling perhaps, Biden did engage and interact with them. What kind of message do you think he sent by doing that?
You know, it's interesting. Obviously, the behavior of the House Republican Conference was just disrespectful, and in my perspective, childlike, in that if the President of the United States is given this incredibly important annual speech, your job is to sit there and listen and represent your constituents and be respectful of the country and of the office, and that didn't happen. I do think that Joe Biden's decision to engage with him was interesting, and he really sort of controlled that environment by doing so. We obviously saw what happened with President Obama when he was disrespected by Congressman Joe Wilson, who yelled out in 2009. And I think perhaps that scenario and observing that helped Joe Biden deal with what happened last night and make the decision to engage, which I think was ultimately an intelligent one.
And what do you think, Michael, that says about just the state of this whole situation that, you know, back in 2009, that was unheard of. Now, though, it seems so much more commonplace.
Yeah, look, I think, unfortunately, it's to be expected. I see that as a reflection of the speaker, because ultimately, the leader of each party, Mr. Jeffries on the Democratic side and Mr. McCarthy on the Republican side, they're responsible for the behavior of their members. And if you think back to last night, you actually saw Mr. McCarthy a few times sort of try to shake his head to show the members that they need to get back in line. Now, obviously, he has very little power, and he ceded that to get his position. But I think that that ultimately is a reflection of House Republicans instead of a reflection of this president.
And Rina, I'm curious to get your thoughts as well on what Michael was just discussing, your thoughts on the combative nature with the audience, which, like Alex said, is not always appropriate in these kind of settings.
Well, the political theater is a whole new level. It is at a place where there's nothing that can be said about it except for it's embarrassing. And it's embarrassing to not just fellow caucus members, but it was visibly embarrassing to Speaker McCarthy, who really wanted to show that Republicans could be trusted to be the adults in the room. But then again, it really is a sign of the hyper-partisan times we live in, too. We have such far right-wing members, and we also have people that are very far left that has made it really hard for Biden to achieve a lot of the bipartisanship that he set forth last night. Last night was incredible in the way that he talked about what they were able to get done legislatively in a previous Congress that had a House led by Democrats. But he really set the stage for what's possible in these next 2 years. And I think on the merits, this speech was very, very aspirational, but also hugely substantive. When he talked about inflation, something that so many young families, young Americans like me are thinking about, we've got young children, and we see the price of daily commodities, eggs on the shelf being so high. He again pointed to pandemic era supply chain issues and Putin's invasion into Ukraine. But then he also went on to talk about manufacturing jobs and the CHIPS Act, which got bipartisan applause there. And then he also touched on police reforming. And I want to give him credit here because he got both parties, both the sides of the aisle up, not just once, but twice, to clap for police reform policies. That says something. And I don't think we can sweep that stuff under the rug. It's going to have a lasting impact. When you talk to Americans directly and say, hey, I know how you feel about jobs having left your community, about feeling like there's no opportunity in your community, you're going to win some hearts over. So there were many Republicans last night who I don't think could say this was a bad speech, but there were a couple places where I felt that he could have really done better, and I don't think he was able to win over any Republicans there. In fact, he, from me, got a couple scowls, and one of those areas was in education. Of course, I respect teachers. I'm the granddaughter of a professor, so I must say I was very happy to hear that he wants to see pay go up for public school teachers, but that's not a solution. Again, families like mine who have very young children who are back in public schools after the pandemic, we know that American children are behind. He has not set forward the plan. His Department of Education is weak. So education is one area where Republicans are really going to give him a hard time. And secondly, while I'm supportive of supporting Ukraine and doing everything possible to make sure they fight back against this Russian aggression and continue to do so, he also continued to say, we will stand with you, Ukraine, for as long as it takes. That is not going to make many Republicans happy because, again, they will further the narrative that America is giving a blank check to Ukraine without giving us more solutions about what's possible to take out Putin and stop that invasion into Ukraine.
So we're running a bit short on time here, but I want to get both of your guys' opinions on Arkansas Governor Sarah Huckabee Sanders. She gave the Republican rebuttal. Michael, let's start with you. How effective do you think she was?
Look, I think she spoke to a very specific audience of people who are on the far right and weren't necessarily interested in figuring out what a bipartisan analysis of Mr. Biden's speech was. And so to answer your question, I think it was very ineffective because I don't think it created a bridge between, the far right of the party and maybe moderate Democrats and Republicans who maybe wanted to see what the other side had to say from a real bipartisan perspective. And so I don't think it was useful. I do think that, circling back to a question earlier, I think that Mr. Biden's speech was historic in a way in that he both outlined these successes he's had with 12 million jobs, but he also pivoted to, as Rina outlined earlier, the idea that, police officers do deserve to go home to their families, as do everyday Americans like myself and others, many of them Black and brown, who struggle with the idea of remaining safe in this atmosphere that we live in. So I think Ms. Huckabee Sanders' speech was not good, and I think that it wasn't effective, but I do think Mr. Biden's speech was effective in focusing on those moderate Americans who really wanted a bipartisan analysis of where we are.
And Rina, how about you?
It saddens me to say we are in a post-truth era. Governor Sanders, she is lying. There's nothing else to say. I mean, she said that he did nothing about the Chinese balloon. When Chinese spycraft is in our air zone, I mean, he acted. Maybe not fast enough for some Republicans, but to say he did nothing was totally reckless, irresponsible, and she's playing a role there. She wants to look good to Republicans who are going to hate Joe Biden no matter what he says. But guess what? The rebuttal to the State of the Union for somebody like her, and in the past it's been proven, is where political careers go to die, and I don't think she's a rising star in the Republican Party at all.
All right, Republican strategist Rina Shah and Democratic strategist Michael Hardaway, thank you both so much for joining us this morning, giving your analysis and your thoughts on the State of the Union address last night. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
During his address